Hi guys, this is Professor Sharma. So this is our first chapter of the textbook that we're going to cover. This is a very important chapter that sets the basis for almost all of our analysis going forward. So I'm going to go slow and I'm going to make sure that you guys are on board while we understand one of the most basic concepts in macroeconomics, which is that of GDP. So macroeconomics. So first of all, I wanted to go over the structure of lecture notes. As you can see here on the first page, I'm going to clearly note which chapter the lecture notes are from. The first box on the top page is going to tell you other materials other than the textbook chapter itself and other than the lecture notes that are going to come in useful to you while you are studying. Worksheet one is online. Please look at the video of me completing a similar worksheet before you attempt that worksheet. These other videos here are supplementary videos that I found on the internet. I find that sometimes just watching or reading a couple of the supplementary videos and readings is actually very helpful, and it helps you understand where what I'm saying and where I'm coming from, even though it may be somebody else's words. Okay. The other thing that you will find on the top slide of every chapter that we cover is going to be the second box, which is going to basically summarize the important issues or topics that are going to be covered in that chapter. So moving to the first issue, which is one of differentiation between macroeconomics and microeconomics. Macroeconomics is about big issues, macro, big. Microeconomics was about decision making, very important decision making by you and me, be it us as consumers, be it us as employers, be it us as workers. So it's about individual decisions, which are dependent on our constraints, our income constraint, our budget constraint, etc. Macroeconomics is the area of economics which is interested in asking what is the aggregate level of production, inflation or prices, or employment, interest rate in the economy, right? So at the micro level, we will ask, I have a bakery, how much bread should I produce and sell? At the macro level, we would ask, how much is the total output of all products, bread and aeroplanes and rockets and flip-flops that are being produced in an economy? Okay. Here I provide you some examples of questions that are going to be different between micro and macro. In micro, we're interested in, a very important question is, how much am I going to earn this year? I, as an individual. In macro, the counterpart to that question is, what is the size of the economy? In fact, that's exactly what most of chapter 6 is about, right? How do we measure the amount of production and consumption that is happening in an economy? At the micro level, I can ask, oh, are my savings growing at an optimal rate? Am I saving enough? Do I have enough for college, for enough for retirement? At the macro level, we would ask, is the economy healthy? Is the economy growing at a healthy rate? At the micro level, we might be worried about our jobs. You can say, oh, my cousin just got fired from his job. Why is that? At the macro level, the counterpart to that is, what is a recession? Okay. Um, and lastly, at the micro level, we can ask the question of, am I in debt? Did I overspend this summer when I went on all my holidays? At the macro level, we have to ask whether the country slash government is in debt. Okay, so we have very important concepts of budget deficit, of interest rate, inflation, unemployment, that is going to be covered under macroeconomics. Um, so because we are interested in everything aggregate at the aggregate level, right? We must first define what we mean by an economy, right? When you look at an individual, you can ask, how much ice cream did you buy last month? How much did you spend on food last month? And so if you're a responsible person, you probably have a budget and you can pull it up, pull out receipts and say, this is how much I spent, this is how much I earned, this is how much I spent. So how do we do that for a country, for an economy as a whole, right? This concept of income and this concept of spending in the context of not a person, but of an economy as a whole is summarized by the concept of GDP. GDP stands for gross domestic product, and it is a measure of everything that is produced and consumed inside an economy in a given period. Right? So just as you can look at your salary slips and say, oh, I'm bringing in $1,500 this month. And then you can look at your receipts and say, oh, but I'm spending $1,300 in an average month, right? Just like that, GDP is a measure of all the earnings of an economy and all the spendings of an economy. So again, I know you guys are going to be very responsible. You're going to read the textbook chapter. Obviously, my lecture notes are very extensive as well. But because this concept of GDP is the most basic macroeconomic concept, I'm just going to go over it in detail here. So GDP, this is the official definition of GDP. It is the market value of all final goods and services produced in a nation within a specific period of time. And these words that are highlighted in orange are going to be really important. Essentially, GDP is the sum of all economic activity, right? An economy produces millions of products, or maybe that's hyperbole, at least hundreds of thousands of products that get produced, be it silk shirts, cotton shirts, t-shirts, dress shirts, trousers, jeans, sedans, Hummers, helicopters, luxury aeroplanes, and so on and so forth. Right? Now, adding up products is an issue. That's because the physical quantity of each product is in different units. So I'm just going to take a very simplistic example. In terms of corn, say 12 billion bushels of corn are produced in a country, while 8 million cars are produced. Now, I can add 12 plus 8. The problem is bushels and cars are non-additive, right? So that's a fundamental problem that we face as soon as we start thinking about economy-wide issues. Is economy produces hundreds of thousands of products, each one of them with different physical units. How do we add them up together? And this is where economists decided to get clever and come up with this concept of market value. See, because these 12 billion bushels of corn must have been sold, and so at what price were they sold? Right? So if I take the price of each bushel of corn and multiply it by the 12 billion bushels of corn that were produced, I get the market value of corn that was produced in the United States in a given year. I'm just going to pause for a second and check out what's